Well, that seems pretty reasonable given the circumstances. I think SoftBank is the funder of last resort, and when you are, I guess, the only buyer or investor, you get to set the terms. And so I'm sure there's a lot of considerations that go into that valuation, but they have a lot of leverage. They probably could have gotten a lower valuation if they had wanted, but for them, I think it's a balance of a lot of considerations, including management morale, employee morale, and probably not too much the other earlier investors who I'm sure are probably not really happy about this, but unfortunately, I think this is the only option for the company to be viable.
So, Sandy, clearly this is given them breathing space to some extent, but now that the total capital raised for this company is vastly higher than the now implied valuation, all of which is according to sources, does that suggest that the future of this company is bleak, even if the immediate future has been saved?
Well, I think that WeWork did really invent this category of co-working, and I think it's likely that it's a category that will continue to grow. And I think WeWork will still be the biggest player and the biggest brand, 3-5 years down the road from now.
But Sandy, they didn't invent it. They might have invented it in a sort of new and trendy and supposedly tech-inspired way, and they are not the biggest player in this market at the moment. Regus, owned by IWG, is.
That's fair. They didn't invent it in the way that I said. They certainly innovated. And I think they are going to go through a pretty brutal period of restructuring here, and they might not make it. I think SoftBank thinks they will. Certainly, their previous investments in WeWork, don't look very good in hindsight. And so it's fair to criticize the wisdom of doing this one. But I think it's considered, and I do think that if they can survive likely severe restructuring, there could end up being a healthy, viable business in the future. Certainly, there are a lot of skeptics for good reason.
And speaking of restructuring, it sounds like Adam Neumann will be there, but maintain just a small double-digit stake in the company, and his voting control will be sharply reduced, if there at all. Marcella Claret will be taking control of the management, as reporting from our own David Faber. What do you make of that move? Is that sort of the right corporate governance to have at this point to give the company a chance to move forward?
Well, I'm not familiar with the exact setup moving forward, but I think clearly they need to make big changes. I guess that's pretty obvious, and it's for whoever is going to take the reins. It will be a real challenge to kind of get that balance of restructuring, but also trying to cultivate hopefully some green shoots of promise in the future. So I don't think it's going to be an easy job for anyone, and I wish I had more visibility into that go-forward plan, but I would expect continuously changes, because it's likely to be a rocky road for them for some time.
Sandy, do you think trust in investment banks has slipped amongst potential IPO investors?
Well, it's interesting. Certainly, this doesn't reflect well upon the folks who put together the S1. There's already a kind of a movement against the more historical IPO process, kind of a trend towards direct listings. This might, push that forward. So it's fair. At the same time, the IPO didn't go through, so I think you can say that it is, markets being reasonably efficient in action. But certainly, I don't think anyone who was involved in the S1, is looking very good right now.